The answer is yes.
Wait, what? Is civilization on the brink of collapse, and could we recover? Yeah. Welcome, folks. I'm Jabby Koay, joined by the one, the only, Steph Sabra. What up, brah?
What up?
Is civilization on the brink of collapse, and could we recover? From Kurzgesagt, I'm probably saying Kurzgesagt wrong, but y'all know what I'm trying to say. I really, really like Kurzgesagt videos a lot, and so Steph Sabra, as far as we know, has not seen one. I thought, why not start with this new one, which just dropped today? If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up. Let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. And while you're subscribing and upvoting, subscribe to Kurzgesagt. There's a link in the description below. If you want to click on that, give the original upvote, subscribe to them from there, and follow Steph Sabra on the Instagrams at The Whirl Girls on YouTube. Here we go.
At its height, the Roman Empire was home to about 30% of the world's population, and in many ways, it was the pinnacle of human advancement. Its citizens enjoyed the benefits of central heating, concrete, double glazing, banking, international trade, and upward social mobility. Rome became the first city in history with 1 million inhabitants and was a center of technological, legal, and economic progress. An empire impossible to topple, stable and rich and powerful. Until it wasn't anymore. First slowly, then suddenly, the most powerful civilization on Earth collapsed. By civilization, we mean a complex society where labor is specialized and social classes emerge, and which is ruled by institutions. Civilizations share a dominant mutual language and culture, and domesticate plants and animals to feed and sustain large cities, where they often construct impressive monuments. Civilization lets us become efficient on large scales, collect vast amounts of knowledge, and put human ingenuity and the natural resources of the world to work. Without civilization, most people would never have been born, which makes it a bit concerning that collapse is the rule, not the exception. Virtually all civilizations end, on average, after 340 years. Collapse is rarely nice for individuals.
How much time we got left? We just hit like quarter of a century, a quarter of a millennium, right? Because it was 1776. I think we just hit 250 years. I think.
We have 100 if we're really, really lucky.
245 years. We've got about 100 years left. We'll be gone well before, the U.S.
We'll be
crash.
on Mars.
But because like, it just happens suddenly. It just suddenly it crashes. It's not like this trickle into complete and utter chaos. It just happens like an explosion. Like
Yeah. We won't even feel it.
Yeah.
It will be painless. We're going to burn alive by climate change.
Their shared cultural identity is shattered as institutions lose the power to organize people. Knowledge is lost, living standards fall, violence increases, and often the population declines. The civilization either completely disappears, is absorbed by stronger neighbors, or something new emerges, sometimes with more primitive technology than before.
Wow.
If this is how it's been over the ages, what about us today?
That's frightening, huh?
Yeah.
Just as Europeans forgot how to build indoor plumbing and make cement, will we lose our industrial technology, and with that our greatest achievements from $1 pizza to smartphones or laser eye surgery? Will all this go away too? Today, our cities stretch for thousands of square kilometers. We travel the skies. Our communication is instant. Industrial agriculture.
Oh,
That was funny. Among Us?
Yeah, Among Us, yeah. That was so random.
That was.
A random Among Us guy ejected into space.
Industrial agriculture with engineered high-yield plants, efficient machinery, and high-potency fertilizer feeds billions of people. Modern medicine gives us the longest lifespan we've ever had, while industrial technology gives us an unprecedented level of comfort and abundance, even though we haven't yet learned to attain them without destroying our ecosphere. There are arguably still different civilizations around today that compete and coexist with each other, but together they also form a singular global civilization. But this modern globalized civilization is even more vulnerable in some ways than past empires because we are much more deeply interconnected. A collapse of the industrialized world literally means that the majority of people alive today would perish, since without industrial agriculture, we would no longer be able to feed them.
We've felt the effects of this with pandemic. It's like some random thing happening in China affects the globe. You know, the Ukraine war brings down the global economy. There are things that we feel from stuff happening somewhere else in America. It's like, and we think we're untouchable, but like, no, we got touched.
Yeah, we're so tethered to
Yeah.
each other, and also corporations. And instead of like investing in things that make us less attached to corporations and more attached to humans,
Yeah.
but that doesn't give Wall Street money.
Yeah, exactly.
And countries money.
And there's an even greater risk. What if a collapse was so deeply destructive that we were unable to reindustrialize again? What if it ruined our chances of enjoying a flourishing future as a multiplanetary species? A global civilizational collapse could be an existential catastrophe, something that ruins not just the lives of everyone alive today, but all the future generations that could have come into being. All the knowledge we might have discovered, the art we might have created, the joys we might have experienced would be lost. So, how likely is all of this? Let's start with some good news. While civilization collapses have happened regularly, none have ever derailed the course of global civilization. Rome collapsed, but the Aksumite Empire, or the Teotihuacans, and of course the Byzantine Empire, carried on. What about sudden population crashes? So far, we've not seen a catastrophe that has killed much more than 10% of the global population. No pandemic, no natural disaster, no war. The last clear example of a rapid global population decrease was the Black Death, a pandemic of the bubonic plague in the 14th century that spread across the Middle East and Europe and killed a third of all Europeans and about 1/10 of the global population. If any event was going to cause the collapse of civilization, that should have been it. But even the Black Death demonstrates humanity's resilience more than its fragility. While the old societies were massively disrupted in the short term, the intense loss of human lives and suffering did little to negatively impact European economic and technological development in the long run. Population size recovered within 2 centuries, and just 2 centuries later, the Industrial Revolution began.
Wow.
History is full of incredible recoveries from horrible tragedies. Take the atomic bombing of Hiroshima during World War II. 140,000 people were killed, and 90% of the city was at least partially incinerated or reduced to rubble. But against all odds, they made a remarkable recovery. Hiroshima's population recovered within a decade, and today it's a thriving city of 1.2 million people.
I'm so uneducated. I thought that was like an area you just can't venture into anymore. Like a nuclear wasteland of some kind.
Yeah.
Like Chernobyl or
yeah,
something.
Chernobyl. That's exactly what I was thinking of. I know it had effects for those years with radiation and cancer and all of these diseases, but I do know it's a livable city now.
That's interesting.
None of this made these horrible events any less horrible for those who lived through them. But for us as a species, these signs of resilience are good news. Why recovery is likely even in the worst case. One thing that's different from historic collapses is that humanity now has unprecedented destructive power. Today's nuclear arsenals are so powerful that all-out global war could cause a nuclear winter and billions of deaths. Our knowledge of our own biology and how to manipulate it is getting so advanced that it's becoming possible to engineer viruses as contagious as the coronavirus and as deadly as Ebola.
Wow.
Increasingly,
Oh my God. Oh. Jeez. Oh, Lord.
Wow.
You know, you sort of are kind of aware of these things, like a cursory understanding, but when they put it in perspective like that, you're like, oh God.
Yeah, because it just takes one crazy person off their rocker to be like, presses the button.
The one thing he hasn't mentioned, Kurzgesagt hasn't mentioned in this video yet, I don't think they will, is a perfect solar storm. This is going to be a really bastardized explanation, so forgive me those of you who are more science heads than me. So, science, basically the sun has these magnetic fields and they get twisted up and twisted up and twisted up. And eventually, like a rubber band, it unleashes and it just sends this force out into space. It's a solar storm. If it's aimed at Earth, it would wreak havoc in terms of our technology. The last time this happened, because this happened before, in the late 1800s, we had telegrams. We didn't have our banking systems and our communications and our money
Stock market
and like our lives and our jobs and YouTube and all that stuff. Our lives didn't depend on the electrical power lines at that time, right? Now they do. We have a lot more than just the telegrams functioning on this. We got TikTok. We got Instagram. Baby.
Yeah.
If we were to be hit with another perfect solar storm, it would be very devastating. And we almost got hit with one around the year 2013. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is crazy.
It was 2012 or 2013. It was around 2012 when that perfect solar storm was supposed to hit us, and we just missed it. We have some safety measures in place, but it could be like... It could feel like the end of the world.
As the coronavirus and as deadly as Ebola. Increasingly, the risk of global pandemics is much higher than in the past.
Jeez.
So we may cause a collapse ourselves, and it might be much worse than the things nature has thrown at us so far. But if, say, 99% of the population died, would global civilization collapse forever? Could we recover from such a tragedy? We have some reasons to be optimistic. Let's start with food. There are 1 billion agricultural workers today, so even if the global population fell to just 80 million, it's virtually guaranteed that many survivors would know how to produce food. And we don't need to start at square one, because we could still use modern high-yield crops. Maize is 10 times bigger than its wild ancestor. Ancient tomatoes were the size of today's peas. After agriculture, the next step towards recovery would be rebuilding industrial capacity like power grids and automated manufacturing. A huge problem is that our economies of scale make it impossible to just pick up where we left off. Many of our high-tech industries are only functional because of huge demand, and
that's what I was thinking about earlier. I meant to talk about this earlier, is the ship, like one of the cargo ships that got stuck, it cost companies like millions and millions of dollars. This ship that got stuck in a canal or something like that, I forget the details exactly. Most of the goods that we get, like when we buy something off Amazon, comes by ships.
Yeah.
Cargo ships, not by plane, because it's cheaper to just have this ship with a bunch of containers on it. And the thing about it is, it's more expensive now to ship things because of all kinds of things. But I just remember when that happened, that one ship caused so much setback, it was ridiculous. One ship caused a lot of setback. It's like the 405, like one car can like just mess everybody
whole
up.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy how interconnected we are.
and intensely interconnected supply chains across different continents. Even if our infrastructure were left unharmed, we would make huge steps backwards technologically. But then again, we are thinking in larger timeframes. Industrialization originally happened 12,000 years after the agricultural revolution. So if we need to start over after a massive collapse, it shouldn't be that hard to reindustrialize, at least on evolutionary timescales. There's a hitch though. The Industrial Revolution was fueled literally by burning easily accessible coal, and we are still very much reliant on it.
And we don't need
If we use it all up today, aside from making rapid climate change much worse, we could hinder our ability to recover from a huge crisis. So we should stop using easy-to-access coal, so it can serve as a civilization insurance in case something bad happens. Another thing that makes recovery likely is that we'd probably have most of the information we need to rebuild civilization. We would certainly lose a lot of crucial institutional knowledge, especially on hard drives that nobody could read or operate anymore. But a lot of the technological, scientific, and cultural knowledge stored in the world's 2.6 million libraries would survive the catastrophe. The post-collapse survivors would know what used to be possible, and they could reverse engineer some of the tools and machines they'd find. In conclusion, despite the bleak prospect of catastrophic threats, natural or created by ourselves, there is reason for optimism. Humankind is remarkably resilient, and even in the case of a global civilizational collapse, it seems likely that we would be able to recover, even if many people were to perish or suffer immense hardship, even if we lost cultural and technological achievements in the process. But given the stakes, the risks are still unnervingly high. Nuclear war and dangerous pandemics threaten the amazing global civilization we have built. humanity is like a teenager, speeding around blind corners, drunk without a seatbelt. The good news is that it's still early enough to prepare for and to mitigate these risks. We just need to actually do it.
Oh man, it's like hopeful but also disheartening at the same time.
Yeah, it's like that last sentence. We just need to actually do it.
I think that the problem with humanity in general is that we think we're invincible or something,
Yes.
or we just don't realize that we are vulnerable, and we don't consider the fact that at any moment it's like it can go. You think about the height of the Roman Empire, just living during that and thinking, hey, this is gonna be it forever, baby. Never gonna end. Yeah. And then it does. And you're like, wait, how did we get here though? I feel like we're not taking enough time to learn from the mistakes of our history, of our ancestors and whatnot. But
Of course not, we're not. Like, we've repeated so many things. We're still using war and brute force as tactics, and then created even worse things like nuclear bombs. And we're all just like, are you gonna do it first?
Yeah.
Are we gonna do it first? But the only thing we're definitely not gonna do is enact change.
Yeah.
Because that would ruin capitalism.
he was talking about hard drives for a second there, and it just made me think about how so much of our precious data is not hard copy. So much of our precious data, like most of the poetry I've written, for instance, is in hard drives. It's on cloud storage, it's on whatever, but still, it's like, it's not hard copy. If all computer systems were to go down, I wouldn't be able to access that. I wouldn't be able to access most of the photos I have of my family. Not that long ago, there was some kind of crazy power outage here. All the power went out like on the block. And I have these power, they're not generators, but they're like batteries. They're called uninterruptible power supplies. Like the computer we have for this right here is on one right now in the event that we had a power outage. It's meant to just get you through a quick, blackout, brownout, whatever. This went on like all night long. It didn't last that long before I didn't have any power in the apartment at all. And when that happened, it reminded me just how fucked we are, how vulnerable we are when things are not functioning the way we just expect them to because of privilege or because we're spoiled or because of whatever. We've adapted to this life of just like daddy somewhere, mommy somewhere, in terms of like the government and the power grid and all that stuff that we have no understanding of. It's just always been there.
Yes.
Yes.
We're addicted to convenience.
It's very convenient. And when it goes away, you're like, well, I don't know what to do.
What do you mean one day shipping is not available?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't live without a new workout set.
Yeah, it's like once it's gone, I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Joe Rogan talked about that in one of his stand-up specials. He's like, I don't know what you guys do when there's a power outage, but I know what I do. I sit and I wait. And that's it. I just wait. It's like, if I gave you an axe and I sent you into the forest, how long before you come back with a cell phone? Like, we are not fucking enough smart people and making sure that there are more smart people to sustain this.
Yeah, this made me want to learn how to farm.
I thought that sentence was going to end differently. But I agree with you. When they were talking about how if the population reduced down to like the little dots, because they said a billion people are agricultural workers. And if they reduced significantly, like 90% or 99%, we'd still have a lot of people left over who understand agriculture. And I was like, well, I don't understand any of that. I don't know how to grow my food.
I barely can keep my plants alive right now. I'm like fighting for my life for them, and I got the easiest indoor plants you could possibly have. Imagine growing food. It'd be like, what do you mean? I put soil, I put the seed, water, like what else do you need?
Time to get a gun.
Yeah.
You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Let us know your feelings and how much anxiety you got from watching this video. Thank you. I'm Jabby Coy. This is
Steph Sabra.
Peace out.